Welcome everybody to this product review where I'm joined with Ian from Pyramid Analytics. Ian, would you like to
Hi,
introduce
guys.
yourselves?
Yeah, hi. My name's Ian Macdonald. I'm Principal Technologist with Pyramid Analytics. I've been with the company around 10 years or so, and prior to that, around 25 years working with various software vendors, but always in the database analytics, end user query reporting, that type of stuff. And prior to Pyramid, I was the Western European BI leader for Microsoft. So a lot of experience and knowledge gained over a long period of time, as you can tell with the lack of hair and the gray beard.
How about that? It takes its toll, huh?
Yes, it
Well,
does indeed.
you said Pyramid Analytics was more than one thing to me just a moment ago. What does that mean?
Yeah.
What is it? Is it not just a database or something?
Um, yeah, so really it's if those of you that follow Gartner Group will probably have looked at their Trends in Data and Analytics 2021 paper, which came out a few months ago. And one of the things in there is they're talking about is something called decision intelligence platforms. And what they're observing in the market is that there's starting to be a confluence between three key technology areas: business analytics, which has all of the kind of usual suspects in it, people like Microsoft, Tableau, Click, and all those good guys. These are tools, as you know, which can take some data, visualize it, create dashboards, et cetera, et cetera. But in order to get the data in the right shape and form that you can do decent analytics on, you need to do some data wrangling. So data preparation. Now, we're not really talking here about the kind of high volume performance sort of enterprise data warehouse ETL processes, but visual drag and drop, no code environments where business users can prepare data, merge data, blend data together prior to performing the analytics that they require. And then there's a third section as well, which would be what you'd call data science. So the application of machine learning algorithms to that data to be able to gain insight quickly and effectively, but be able to do that in a sophisticated way that, again, doesn't require, to have a PhD in data science to be able to perform that. So where we see Pyramid sitting is really at the confluence of those three things. Pyramid itself is an end-to-end analytics platform from raw data through to insight, which combines that business analytics, data wrangling, data science in one integrated platform. And this is designed for business users, not necessarily for data scientists or IT professionals, but for ordinary folk that need to get insight from data quickly, effectively, and using sophisticated techniques. In addition to all of this, there's also the social element. So I need to be able to collaborate on this, to engage in real-time conversation on the analytics that I've created, to be able to define alerts, subscriptions, distribute content, and what we're going to be looking at today, which is the automated insight capability to actually gain insights to the data really as a single click of the button.
You took a
From
moment
a
now to
Yeah, sure.
distinguish between these big ETL data wrangling types of platforms and another type of data wrangling that is more related to what you might get when data is on its way out to somebody that consumes it. Can you elaborate a little bit more about that distinction and why it's important for business users to know that there's a difference? They might think, oh, we just bought Spark, isn't that enough? Why make that distinction at all?
Well, typically there, when I'm looking at those types of tools, I'm going to require a fair degree of expertise, training, and knowledge to be able to use them effectively. What we're trying to bring to the party is say, yeah, I want to do that kind of level degree of sophistication in the analysis that I want, but I don't have necessarily the skills or the experience to do it directly myself using something like Python, for example, or R, or some of those other techniques, or those big data type tools like you mentioned, like Spark, etc. So it's really bringing all of that capability and analysis and the range of capabilities that I can do to bear, but to be able to do it for ordinary business users. I don't need a degree in data science. I don't need to have tons of experience of data preparation or sort of ETL type tools to do that. So really a very much visual, no code environment where I can go from raw data to insight as fast as possible.
Right.
So from that point of view, in terms, where we see pyramids sitting in that marketplace, and then from a kind of process point of view, they're, what we could call a decision intelligence supply chain. And that is that we have a number of tools within the platform that allow you to model your data, to be able to access existing databases, merge data sets, as we talked about already, prepare the data, to be able to create queries, visualizations against that, to be able to build calculations across both the kind of record level at the data flow, but also at the semantic level when I'm looking at my business dimensions, to be able to create interesting visualizations and illustrations with dynamically generated text, for example, and then to be able to compose all of these together in terms of interactive dashboards and formatted publications for output. So this is all around the kind of content creation. We see very much in our customers and people we're talking to that people tend to fall into two camps: those that create content and then those that consume it. But the consumers of that content also need to be able to have tools where they can explore the data further, taking one standard visualization in the dashboard, but then to be able to dig around in the data which sits behind it, looking at it in different ways, to be able to create subscriptions, alerts, be able to build, and also to communicate and discuss the content of that they're looking at. And all of that in an environment which is governed in terms of the content, who has access to what, governed in terms of the data, who has access to which data and when, all in a single security environment. So that's what Pyramid kind of brings to the party. And what I wanted to talk a little bit more about today was some of the what we call bringing AI to BI, to give automated insights into my data. And in the process of that, hopefully to give you a quick idea of a use case, how people might use the Pyramid platform. So I can dive into that unless you've got some questions on what we've seen so far.
Oh, no, I'm eager to hear how you see AI can bring additional value to the kinds of naysayers that might say we've been doing business intelligence forever. So please go ahead.
Okay, that's cool. So I'm going to skip my into Chrome. I've connected into a Pyramid server. I'm actually using a beta version. This was a what's new and interesting and exciting in our product. So I'm using a beta version of Pyramid. This actually will be available in GA towards the end of this month. So what I wanted to show you is, how do I sort of connect to some data to start with? And in this case, what I'd like to do is to go and find a local database. In this case, I'm looking at Postgres. I want to find a database in there, which I want to start doing some analysis on my data. So here I could choose a database from the list that I have access to. I could choose the tables that I want to work with in this case. So let's just drop a couple of those out. We'll choose that one in. And I want to add that to my model. So what Pyramid's doing here is looking at the metadata and heuristically determining the relationships between my tables. We can see that it's defined the joins between those to actually relate the data together. And for particular things I'm interested in, for example, my margin, I might want to create an averaging model. So if I'm looking at by country or by customer or by product, I want to see what's my average margin rather than the total margin, which wouldn't make a lot of sense. And I'd also like to actually see that formatted correctly. Once I've done that, I can just hit finish. What Pyramid's doing now is creating a semantic model which describes that database. So I can now start to create some content. So let's, for example, say we're interested in my sales and margin, let's say by product. So I'm going to create a quick scatter plot here. And I want to look at my sales and I want to look at my margin, like so. Maybe I want to filter that by my country. So I'm going to grab from my customers table. I'm going to drop country into my filters and we're going to choose a multi-select button. And we can see it listed up nicely here. So I can select a bunch of things in here, as we can see, to actually look at this. And for any one of these points, we'll see this as, for example, my country. I may also want to add that into the mix as well here, for example. So now each of these points is a combination of product and country. So once I've created that, I'm going to save it. And I'm going to sort of call that one, let's just call it scatter, for example. And again, I can save into my workspace or I can save it into shared workspace for collaboration. And then I may want to include that, for example, on a new dashboard. And that's going to create some default stuff here. And we can simply grab this in, drag my scatter plot into place and see it on here. And then I may also want to bring in my filter as well. So if we look at my scatter plot in my content system, I can bring that filter in as well, like so. And then Pyramid will see has automatically linked that if I show the interaction. So at runtime, off we go. I can see this, and again, I can filter the content in here, and as I add in or remove countries, we see the different plot points created. So you'll notice, though, coming back to our AI to BI, I've got a list of products and by country. I'm looking at sales versus margin and plotting that, as you can see. But I'm also interested in what else is going on in the data which sits behind that particular plot. So for any analytic visualization I have, including my dashboard, we'll see a range of tools at the top. And these can include things like lasso, grab a data point, pass that value to another visual for filtering. But you'll notice a little thing here called Smart Insights. So what Smart Insights will do is to automatically analyze the data which is sitting behind this particular visualization. I'm showing it as a scatter plot, but there's other information in here that I might be interested in. So again, this is not programmed by me. This is out of the box. It's looking at that data set, use that visualization, giving me some basic facts, some Pareto analysis, and the relationship between margin and sales. This is a light analysis, as you can see, but if I go to more advanced, we start to see things like outlier items. So I can look at this particular point here, United States mountain rim, for example, as the product, but we can obviously see that as well from a probability in terms of its outliers status. We can also look at this from a categorical point of view. So remember we had filtering by country or adding countries into here. So now I can break this out by my individual countries. And we can show this is dynamic. If I close that off and let's say let's just drop a couple of the countries out here. And I take a view of that again, looking at the categorical now, I just have United Kingdom and United States. So this type of insight which is generated is adding further information, further insights, not just in the way that I've visualized the data, which gives me one view of it, but also to look at some of the summaries, the maximums, the minimums, the averages, the relationships, the outliers, all of this which is generated automatically by the system. Now, in this case, I have it as a pop-up on my dashboard, but this is also available to me within the dashboard authoring tool. So I could insert this information into a text box on the dashboard, for example, so it's always visible. So that's kind of, one of the pieces of analytics that we introduced probably about 6 months ago or so. But what I would really like to show you again is something which we're calling explain. So I'm just going to drop out of my dashboard for a second. And I'm going to create a new query against my existing model. And in this case, I want to look at my supply side. So I want to create a grid, let's say, by my manufacturer. And I'm going to look at my product category, let's say, on my columns. And I want to look at the sales across in that sort of cross-tabulated way. So we're looking at a bunch of data here. And what I'd like to be able to do is to understand what is driving any particular value in this grid. So from here, I can pick any of these numbers, for example, my supplier over armor for bikes, for example, and I can ask the system to explain how this number comes about. And this is where, oh dear, okay. Hope we got some editing tools in there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Now, but this is I'm curious, like while this loads, if you can tell me what users get most excited by this. Is financial controllers, like this really to me seems like it would appeal to any enthusiast that really feels like they get a tool in their hand that lets them like a power user would, or maybe like a programmer would be able to, but nobody has time to program. So what kind of users? Exactly. What kind of users does it appeal most to?
it is anybody that's looking to understand their data in a more detailed fashion than perhaps was possible before. We saw with the automated insights that I can do that analysis on that data set that previously, I can create the visualization, but if I wanted to analyze that and look for my maximum, my minimums, my outliers, each one of those particular processes would require me, A, to understand the mathematics I needed to perform, but also then to actually construct that and look at that number. And using something like Excel, that would take you hours and hours to do that type of work.
Yeah.
What we've done here is take this a stage further and do some really interesting AI work in the background looking at this particular data point. So in this case, what it's looking at is something called dominant drivers, influencers, and deviators. So you may have seen some other tools, things, with sort of key drivers, but they're looking really just, I have to predefine in some of those tools which are the dimensions or attributes I want to investigate. Here with Pyramid, we're looking across the whole data set in terms of all of the dimensions that may be applicable. So we found this particular item here. So we're looking at the manufacturer Wilson, we're looking at the product category of components, and we're looking at a particular sales measure. And what the dominant drivers do, statistical analysis here, is to look at what are the dominant drivers for that. In this case, we can see it's road frames in my product subcategory and the large in the class of that particular product. And for each of those, we can then actually, subdivide that further. So for my road frames, what are the dominant drivers across all of my business attributes? In this case, we can see it's the United States, and also the style U contributing to that. And this will carry on down further. And we can ask it, to decompose this further as we move down. And we can swap over in terms of how I want to look at that. So these are the dominant drivers. These are the key attributes. If I'm looking at how I got to this number here, and I wanted to dig down and understand what were the contributions, the dominant drivers to this value, then this is where I'd look. Initially in my road frames as the product subcategory, then to the country, then to the color, for example, here. So these are the dominant drivers. We can also look at the influences here. We can swap this around as well. And this, again, will actually break this down in terms of not just what's driving it, but what's influencing it. So less of an impact in terms of the actual value, but more in terms of what's influencing those dominant drivers themselves. And indeed, we can go again, in this case, we can further break this down and look at it. And the key thing here is that I'm not predefining what attributes or dimensions to look at. These are being looking at across the entire data set for that particular data point, looking at all of the dimensions and attributes to actually give me a deep understanding of what it is that I may want to affect from a marketing or a business action point of view, and how that will then relate to that particular key value.
This seems like a really principled. Keep going.
No, go on.
Well,
Okay.
it just seems like a principled way to approach, taking care of the data that enthusiast users otherwise would have been relegated to doing, unbeknowingly having to manage Excel files in perpetuity because, they started something in Excel and then, they're the one managing it and IT isn't aware of it. And also, I mean, the value of the AI system that you've been exemplifying here speaks very much for itself. I think you've demoed almost more than what a lot of people might realize is available in the product. And I'm sure there are very many features that people aren't aware of. If they wanted to get their hands on this and try it out for themselves, what would be where should they turn to? What would be a good first step?
You can drop into our website. You can ask for access, and we can give you access to cloud capabilities, so you can log in and start playing with the stuff yourself. You can upload your own data and start working with that as well. There's also example databases available. So press the button on the website and we can arrange access for you to have a play.
Does it make sense even for individuals to contact you, or should it be an entire team?
We don't mind. I mean, we would like, obviously, to talk to big organizations who go on to implement pyramids on large scale analytic projects, but individuals are more than welcome to contact us as well. More than happy.
All right. Well, then we know that you don't have to start big on every project. Sometimes
Oh,
it's
no.
enough with a team and a driven evangelist, like we were speaking about yesterday.
Yes, exactly.
All right, Ian. Well, thanks a lot. I thought this was a really cool demo, and I hope everybody enjoyed watching it. Thanks for joining us today, and feel free to contact Ian and visit Permit Analytics' website if you thought this was compelling. See you very soon.
Cheers.